The woman deliberately cut off her own hair, carefully put it into a bag, and then took out the hair dye to change the color of her hair and eyebrows, and then sprinkled disinfectant water on the ground to erase the traces that she had been here, and then picked up a hammer and smashed it fiercely into herself. What she did this is to make herself completely disappear, and then framed her husband for the murder of herself. Half a year ago, she customized a detailed plan. First of all, swiped her husband's credit card, buy all kinds of expensive luxury goods to hide, to create the illusion that her husband is facing a financial crisis. In order to sit on the fact that her husband killed his wife, she bought herself a high amount of insurance, but the beneficiary of the insurance is her husband. Then deliberately and pregnant female neighbor to be friends, often to her complain about her husband's domestic violence, invited female neighbors to the home as a guest, the neighbor after the toilet, and then extract her urine. With this urine sample, she can prove that she is pregnant, using the identity of the pregnant woman to package herself as a week. After everything was prepared, on the day of her wedding anniversary, after confirming that her husband was out of the house, she created another murder scene. In order to make her plan foolproof, she wrote 300 diary entries, starting from the beginning of her passionate love affair with her husband, and made up stories in her diary to make the story seem both real and brutal. She wrote about her husband as a cheating asshole, and herself as being abused by her husband for years, staying in fear all the time, then put the diary in the oven and burned it just right to create the illusion that her husband was destroying the evidence, purposely leaving a letter of clues for the police to open up the perfect planting of the evidence, and then disappeared in her car alone, changing her face to come to the other side of the country. She rented a house, waiting for her husband will be arrested for murder as she expected. The police little by little found a lot of clues. The charge of killing his wife has been held in the head of her husband. I did not expect Amy's disappearance, but Nick faced a large number of media smiled triumphantly, enthusiastically greeted each and every one of them, but also, and the beautiful woman face to face to take a group photo. In the face of the disappearance of the love of his life, cannot see the appearance of worry, but all kinds of strange behavior so that Nick instantly rushed to the headlines. The media reported that he is a bastard, his wife's whereabouts are still unknown, and he can still show such a relaxed. In order to stabilize his image, Nick held a prayer meeting for his wife that night. At this time, the female neighbor suddenly appeared with a child in her arms, loudly denounced him as scum, abusing his pregnant wife. This sudden heavy news immediately threw the scene into chaos. The media also swarmed. He hastily hid in the police car to get away. In the face of the police questioning, Nick said that he did not know the female neighbor, but the police took out a photo of Amy and the neighbor. The two look very familiar, and after fluorescent testing, there was a large pool of Amy's blood in the kitchen. Nick is still arguing that it is possible that the murderer faked the scene of the crime, but then the police took out Nick's credit card records, which detailed the various luxury goods he bought. The most important thing is the amount of Amy's insurance. The beneficiary is exactly Nick. All the evidence is pointing to Nick's murder of his pregnant wife. His wife disappeared inexplicably. He also took the charge of murder for no reason. He was unable to defend himself, violently smashed the hand of the glass of water, and so on the police left. Nick gradually calmed down. He had to prove his own innocence and began to look for the next clue. He thought of the brown cabin, opened it, and was completely shocked by what he saw. It was full of male luxury goods, which would be completely unprovable if the police found out he was guilty of murder, while at the same time Amy was sitting in her rented room, watching the media questioning and condemning her husband on TV, dancing happily to celebrate, but accidentally dropped her thick wallet out. Amy scrambled to gather the wallet and stuffed it into her clothes, but it had already been seen by a neighbor, who soon broke into her room with a man and pressed Amy against the wall. She was robbed of millions by her neighbor, but she didn't dare to call the police at all, and could only use a pillow to cover her mouth and roar in anger. Neighbors have long been able to see the woman's disguise. Eyes are fake, hair is fake. Must be to hide what to run here. Sure that she did not dare to report to the police. No financial support, Amy can only call her ex-boyfriend, pretending to escape from her husband's domestic violence. A pitiful look. The ex-boyfriend is very heartbroken. The ex-boyfriend rushed to let her live in his mansion, telling her that it was full of surveillance and there was no need to worry about any danger. So Amy hid here and waited for her husband to be convicted of murder so she could start her life with a brand new identity. And Nick was about to be convicted of murder because of the evidence Amy had left behind. Only if Amy shows up, all the public opinion will be unbreakable. So he was ruthless and volunteered to go on the show, and frankly told all the viewers that he made a mistake that all men in the whole world make, and now he regrets it, and only hopes that his wife can come back safely, as he confessed deeply on TV. Amy watched her husband's heartfelt confession on TV and felt that the perfect husband in her heart was back. She had to find a way to reasonably get back to her husband, and soon she came up with a horrible plan. She took the initiative to send a passionate kiss to her ex-boyfriend before he went out of the door, took the opportunity to bite his lips, and purposely messed up his hairstyle in order to make the ex-boyfriend disheveled out of the door so that it can be photographed by the doorway monitoring, and then immediately tied a rope on their legs, dipped their clothes into the red wine, full of pain, and slammed headfirst into the doorway glass under the monitoring, wailing and looking at the blood on the corner of the skirt to create the illusion that they were violently abused by their ex-boyfriend. At night, she deliberately met her ex-boyfriend, but just as she and her ex-boyfriend were violently exercising, Amy took out a pocket knife from under her pillow and quickly slashed her ex-boyfriend's artery. And early the next morning, Amy returned home covered in blood and slowly fainted in her husband's arms in full view of the crowd as she cried out to the police. That day, her ex-boyfriend rang her doorbell. She was then kidnapped and held captive by her ex-boyfriend, during which time she had been assaulted several times, and this time it was self-defense that killed him. She instantly branded herself as a victim, and the surveillance at her ex-boyfriend's home proved it, and she pretended to be emotionally distraught. Condemning the police for almost misjudging her husband as a murderer, the two returned home under police escort. But Nick knew that his wife had killed on purpose, and he was so scared that he wanted to leave Amy, only to be threatened by Amy that if you leave now, I believe that it won't be long before you're back to being the asshole that people say you are for abandoning your innocent wife. And to his surprise, Amy is really pregnant this time. The husband can't believe it because he hasn't touched his wife at all. The wife laughs and says that it's IVF, and now she's really turned into a damaged pregnant wife, and the husband can't leave her anymore. And so Nick is trapped in this horrible marriage and plays the loving couple with Amy.